If you get this right, I'll make you the president. And if you don't want that, I'll do whatever you ask. How about it? No complaints now, right? At our middle school reunion, a beautiful CEO's daughter, whom I hadn't seen in years, challenged me with a tough question. She seemed to dislike me since back then, and now she sneered, mocking me for only having a high school diploma. Her face bore a smug expression, as if she were saying, "I bet you can't solve this." Honestly, I didn't want either prize, but I couldn't turn down a fight when one was handed to me. As I looked over the question, well, I had a bit of trouble with this one myself. It shouldn't be so easy for you either, right? Fine. I'll give you a little hint. Oh, sorry. It was so easy I already solved it. Ha! Actually, you know. I shot a smirk at the stunned CEO's daughter. My name is Rick Mitchell, 32 years old. My work involves the ocean. But I'm not out on the sea like a fisherman. In the mild climate of the Seto Inland Sea, I run a fish farming business, raising Red Sea bream and flounder. This fish farm was started by my grandfather. When I graduated high school, I took over the business. My family includes my dad, my mom, and my sister, who's 8 years older, making us a family of 4. Dad works as a banker at a regional bank, and mom is a homemaker. With a strict dad, a gentle mom, and a caring sister, I had a pretty happy life. Since I was young, I loved going to my grandparents' house. Every summer break, I'd stay there for a long time, surrounded by the ocean and mountains. Hey, Rick. Let's go to the ocean. Wait up, Grandpa. Each morning, I'd head to the sea with my grandpa and help feed the Red Sea bream and flounder on the farm. It was just feeding them, but with such a large farm, it felt like hard work for a kid. Still, every day I'd help without skipping. And the breakfast afterward always tasted incredible. In the afternoons, I'd swim in the sea or catch bugs with friends who lived nearby, enjoying my childhood to the fullest. I remember feeling so happy because the local kids always welcomed me, even though I only came during summer. But when I was about to graduate high school, Grandpa fell ill. The problem was how to keep the fish farm running. My dad, with his banking job, couldn't take over the business. Then I'll take over Grandpa's fish farm. Are you sure, Rick? You were planning to go to college. I'm sure. I'd hate to see Grandpa's fish farm go away. Dad tried to talk me out of it, but I couldn't bear the thought of letting my grandfather's fish farm go under. With that strong conviction, I convinced him. So, I gave up on going to college, moved in with my grandparents, and started helping out at the farm. Though I knew the work was tough, I had watched for years and had a general idea of the steps. A veteran named Sam, who had worked with Grandpa for years, taught me the detailed work and helped me get through. Sam had known me since I was little and had always treated me like a grandson when I'd come to help at the farm. He was both kind and strict as he taught me. After a while, Grandpa's health improved enough that he could start working with us again. Rick, I'm sorry. You've done so much for us. Don't worry about it. I did it because I wanted to. Rick's pretty efficient, so it's been a big help. You should take it easy, old man. Hey now, I'm not ready to lose to the young ones just yet. At Grandpa's words, Sam and I looked at each other and laughed. Then, one day, I got a call from Mom. Apparently, an invitation postcard for my middle school reunion had arrived at my parents' house. When I graduated from middle school, we moved due to Dad's job transfer, leaving behind the neighborhood I'd known. So, I hadn't kept in touch with any of my classmates since then. I wonder how everyone's doing. I'm kind of curious, but I just don't feel like going to the reunion." As I was thinking that, Mom unusually encouraged me to attend. Usually, when I say I'm not going, you just say without much interest. When I asked her why, she explained what the postcard had said. Apparently, this reunion was a big deal because our ninth grade teacher, Mr. Thompson, was retiring. And the gathering would double as his retirement celebration. "Hey, Rick, maybe you should go this time? You always skip these things." "Yeah. Mr. Thompson did a lot for me." I thought it over. I'd gotten invitations before but never went to any of the reunions. It was because there was one woman I really didn't want to see. It wasn't like we dated or broken up or anything. But for some reason, she had always disliked me in middle school, almost like she saw me as an enemy. What puzzled me was that I had no idea why she'd felt that way. If I'd actually done something to her, I'd apologize. But since I didn't remember doing anything, there wasn't even a clear reason to make amends. What's with that bedhead? So uncool. No wonder you can't get any attention looking like that. What's that handwriting? It's so messy I can't even read it. Really shows who you are as a person. Try writing neater, will you? She would make comments like that, always putting me down. Over time, her presence became something I resented, and my grades even started to slip, worrying my family and teachers back then. I wanted to ask her why she acted that way toward me, but I never got the chance before we moved right after graduation. I still wanted to know the reason, but facing her now would probably just mean hearing more of her jabs, which didn't exactly excite me. As I was mulling this over on the phone with Mom. "Hey, Rick. Are you even listening? Oh. Sorry, just got lost in thought. Good grief. So, what's it going to be? Should I mark you down as attending?" "Yeah, go ahead. I do want to see Mr. Thompson, after all." After some hesitation, I decided I really should go this time to thank Mr. Thompson for everything he'd done. I double-checked the date with Mom and made up my mind to attend. Then, I shared the news with Grandpa and Sam. "Oh, a reunion, huh? That's great. Maybe you'll finally meet someone special." Rick could find himself a lovely bride, no doubt. Guys, reunions aren't for that. I laughed off their teasing and headed back to my parents' house. After dropping off my bags at the old place and chatting with Mom a bit, I headed to the hotel where the reunion was being held. At the entrance, I checked in and pinned on the name tag provided. Entering the banquet hall, I noticed it was a standing buffet setup. Looks like a lot of people came since it's also a celebration for Mr. Thompson. I glanced around the room. Even though it had been since middle school, some people hadn't changed much at all. "Hey! Are you Rick? No way! And look at you, totally tanned." "Well, I run a fish farm by the ocean." "Of course, I'm tanned. You vanished right after graduation. We were pretty worried, you know?" "Yeah. None of the high schools around here had you." "Haha, my bad." Talking with everyone brought a flood of memories back. After a while, the reunion officially began. After the organizers' opening remarks, a toast was proposed, and everyone raised their glasses in a celebratory cheer. Then came time for chatting and enjoying the meal. I decided to greet Mr. Thompson first, grabbing a bottle of beer and making my way over to him. "Mr. Thompson, thank you for all your hard work over the years." "Oh, Rick. How have you been?" "Thanks to you, I've been doing well." With that, I poured some beer into his glass. Mr. Thompson specialized in social studies. He was usually a strict teacher, but he was also incredibly caring. Thanks to you, I've been able to get along with my family, even now. I really appreciate what you did for me back then. Good to hear. I heard you moved right after graduation, so I was a bit worried about you. Mr. Thompson smiled, eyes crinkling warmly. Mr. Thompson, Just as I was about to continue our conversation, more classmates began gathering around Mr. Thompson. I wanted to talk with him more, but with people crowding in one after another, there was no chance for a relaxed conversation. Oh well, I'll talk to him later, I thought, and returned to the group of classmates to reminisce about old memories and chat about what everyone was up to. Some had found success, while others were still facing challenges. But we all agreed it was wonderful to reunite like this. As the reunion reached its midpoint, a bingo game began. Just as the energy picked up, a stunning woman with flowing hair entered the room a bit late. People started murmuring, "Who is that? She's gorgeous." The whole room began buzzing, but I recognized her immediately. Her name was Emma Harris. She'd been beautiful even in middle school, but seeing her now, more stunning than I could have expected, took me by surprise. The others soon realized she was Emma, too, and whispers spread as they noticed her. Listening in, I gathered that after high school, she'd gone to Tokyo University and even won the Miss Tokyo University title thanks to her looks. She was also the daughter of the president of Harris Foods and was now on the board there. But while everyone else admired her, I felt my body tense up. She was, after all, the reason I'd avoided previous reunions. Emma and I had shared the same class in 7th and 9th grades, but I'd always found her hard to be around. Or rather, I'd go so far as to say I outright disliked her. Every time we made eye contact, she would glare and quickly make some snide comment. And since I didn't understand why she treated me like that, it was baffling. How could I possibly like someone who openly disliked me? In academics, too, we'd always vied for the top 2 spots in our grade. Back then, the results for the top 10 students were posted at the front of the classroom after each term exam. Whenever she took first place, she'd ridicule me as if she'd won some grand prize. And when I came out on top, she'd get visibly frustrated, vowing to beat me next time. At first, I would respond, but it got tiring, so eventually, I just let it slide. But Emma kept up her one-sided rivalry, and I never understood why I deserved her scorn. Whenever she insulted me, I just gritted my teeth, waiting for the storm to pass. Seeing her now brought all those unpleasant memories flooding back, so I slipped toward the back of the room, hoping to avoid her. But Emma scanned the room and, catching sight of me, immediately started walking over. Great, she found me. I tried to dodge by talking to someone else, but it was too late. She reached me first. "Oh, Rick, it's been a while. You look well." Yeah, thanks. You look well too, Emma." "Of course. Keeping healthy is essential, don't you think? By the way, I heard you didn't go to college and are working on a fish farm?" "Well, yeah. That figures." The moment I walked in, I thought I smelled the ocean. As expected, Emma wasted no time throwing out a sarcastic comment, even going so far as to hold her nose while giving a smug little laugh. For some reason, she seemed to know that I worked at a fish farm. Did she dig into my background with her connections as a CEO's daughter? Or maybe she just asked someone here. Either way, whatever. Glancing around, I saw people nervously watching us from a distance. It felt just like old times. And I realized that Emma probably wanted to belittle me, the high school grad, and show off in front of everyone. She grabbed a whiteboard set up for entertainment, writing something on it. I sighed, recognizing this as her typical behavior, unchanged even now. Hey, everyone. Is there anyone here who can solve this problem? She called out, and silence fell over the room. Even the event organizer looked uneasy, watching to see how things would unfold. Knowing no one would be able to answer, Emma spun around and looked directly at me. Oh, that's right. I wonder if Rick, who jumped straight into the workforce with just a high school diploma, can solve this problem. The Miss Tokyo University beauty and CEO's daughter had likely chosen this tough question just to mess with me. The question, a challenging math problem in English, was clearly meant to trip me up. Classmates whispered to each other, "Do you think anyone can solve that?" while consulting those around them. What are you trying to prove with this out-of-the-blue problem? I muttered. Nothing, really. Oh. But if you get it right, I'll make you president. No way that's happening. I'm a CEO's daughter, I can make that happen. Or, if you don't want that, I'll do whatever you say. How about that? No excuses, right? She looked triumphantly at me, as if to say, I bet you can't solve this. Her words had the whole room buzzing, and classmates started cheering, caught up in the excitement. Honestly, I didn't care about either prize. But I couldn't walk away from a challenge, so I glanced over the problem. Oh, I see. Did you really think I couldn't solve this? Well, I struggled a bit with this one myself. As good as you were in school, this shouldn't be too easy for you, right? Fine. I'll give you a hint out of kindness, she said with a grin. Actually, I've already solved it, I replied casually. What? I easily wrote out the solution on the whiteboard. By the way, didn't you have something else to say? Nothing at all, she snapped. Really? Anyway, this is the right answer, isn't it? I asked, pointing to my solution. She glanced at the board, eyes wide, and whispered, Yes, it's correct. The crowd burst into cheers, congratulating me. Wow, Rick, that's awesome. You're still as sharp as ever. At that moment, Mr. Thompson, who had been quietly watching, walked over clapping. Well, that was quite entertaining. Oh, Mr. Thompson. I'm so sorry for the scene. Emma stammered, bowing her head. Then, she shot me a glare. Oh, scary. I muttered. No need for that look. Don't worry about it. But you may have picked the wrong opponent. You see, Rick competed as part of the Japanese team in the International Math Olympiad back in high school and won a gold medal. So, a problem like this is no challenge for him. At his words, Emma and the rest of the class turned to me, stunned. Oh, this isn't good. I was just about to say, Mr. Thompson. When? And by the way, Mr. Thompson added, Rick didn't just finish high school. He's a Stanford graduate. Just as I feared, he announced it to everyone. I couldn't help but hold my head in my hands. All eyes in the room turned to me at Mr. Thompson's words. Even Emma looked at me, her eyes wide in surprise. Oh, Mr. Thompson. I muttered. Oh, was that supposed to be a secret? My apologies, he said, smiling as he looked at me. It was clearly an apology without any real regret. Looking around, I noticed my classmates staring at me with wide-eyed admiration. Ow. Resigned, I took a deep breath. And I decided to explain. Well, right before I graduated high school, my grandfather, who ran the fish farm, got sick. with no one else to help him, I decided to skip college to work at the farm. But after my grandfather's health improved and my dad retired and could help, I was able to step away from work and head to Stanford. I paused for a moment, but my classmates pressed in with more questions. So, what happened next? Why Stanford, specifically? My dad remembered that I'd originally wanted to go to college, so he encouraged me to pursue it. I thought studying would be useful, even if I continued running the farm. Plus, I had a friend from the Math Olympiad who was also studying abroad, which made the idea more appealing. When I finished, the way they looked at me changed instantly, and I was bombarded with even more questions. Are the girls abroad really that cute? What's college like over there? Is it really hard to graduate? I answered as best I could, and as I did, the reunion neared its end. Scanning the room, I looked for Emma. I spotted her just as she was about to leave, so I took a deep breath, walked over, and called out, "Hey, Emma, can we talk for a sec?" "What?" When I called out to her, Emma shot me a sharp glare. Ignoring her obvious irritation, I decided to finally ask the question that had been on my mind all these years. "So, back in middle school, I always wondered but never asked. Why did you treat me like an enemy?" But she said nothing and turned to leave. I reminded her of her earlier words. "You said if I answered the question, you'd do anything I asked, right?" That made her stop in her tracks. After a pause, she turned to me, sighed deeply, and faced me with a look of resignation. "Oh, you didn't need to sigh that heavily. It was during the summer of 7th grade. I went to my dad's office to drop something off, and I saw him kneeling in front of your dad. I was so shocked and humiliated that I ran off without even giving him what I brought." "Wait, my dad made your dad kneel?" "Yes. Later, I saw your dad at school for open house, and I realized that he was the one my dad knelt before. I decided then to avenge my dad. I had no idea that happened." I couldn't find any words in response. Seeing my silence, Emma turned on her heel, and she left the venue without looking back. After returning to work, I decided to ask my dad, who had recently retired from the bank, about what had happened back then. I couldn't shake what Emma had told me and felt compelled to get to the truth. "Oh, I remember that well." Mr. Harris suddenly knelt, and I was just as surprised. "So, it really happened. Now, don't get the wrong idea." Of course, I immediately told him, "Please don't kneel." But he insisted, saying, "Not until you approve the loan." "Wait, so you didn't make him do it?" "I'd never make someone do that." Our bank had already extended a loan of several $100,000 to Harris Foods, and they needed to make monthly payments. But since business was slow back then, Mr. Harris had asked for a deferral of those payments, a loan adjustment. So that's what happened. Dad continued his story, reminiscing about the past. Thanks to the reduced monthly payments, Harris Foods' finances gradually improved. But just as things were getting better, they requested an additional loan for equipment investments. Typically, when a loan is rescheduled, it's difficult to secure more funding. After all, they're already struggling to make regular payments. So granting another loan risks us not recovering the funds, which could spell disaster for the bank. Nodding in understanding, I realized that the kneeling must have happened during that exchange. So, what happened with the additional loan? We approved it. Mr. Harris and I put together a recovery plan, and we managed to secure that extra financing. Wow, Dad, that's impressive. Oh, it's nothing special. But looking back, Harris Foods really took off from there. It's a nostalgic memory. Dad's eyes softened as he spoke. I see. Thanks, Dad. I understand the situation now. Well, good. If you ever have more questions, just let me know. Thanks. I felt relieved, knowing Dad wasn't the type of person to force anyone to kneel. I wanted to clear up Emma's misunderstanding as soon as possible. So I called Harris Foods right away and asked to be connected to her. What do you want? I'm busy, she said coldly. About the other day. Oh? Are you trying to tell me I was wrong? Hearing her irritated tone, I hurried to explain. No, it's not that. There's just something important I want to tell you. Fine. I don't have time right now, but would next Sunday work? Yes, that works. Thank you. We agreed to meet at a cafe near the station on Sunday. I arrived 10 minutes early, ordered an iced coffee, and waited for her. Right on time, Emma entered the cafe. Even in casual clothes, she looked stunning, making my heart skip a beat. At the reunion, she'd worn a chic suit, but today she had on a sleeveless top and slim capri pants, a much more relaxed look. I then shared with her everything Dad had told me. Wait, really? I had no idea that happened. She murmured, visibly taken aback. I was surprised to hear it myself. But that's why I wanted to clear things up with you. I see. I remember my dad was really troubled back then. He even developed a bald spot from stress, and he'd come home late every night. As a kid, I could tell he was under a lot of pressure. Emma looked down, her voice soft. As I wondered what to say, she continued. So, when I saw him kneeling, it really shocked me. I ended up assuming your father must be a terrible person. Well, seeing only that part, anyone might have thought the same, so I get it. But I'm sorry. As long as you know now that my dad isn't like that, it's all good. Yeah. Thanks to you, I understand now. Thank you. I'm glad. I mean, my dad isn't a bad guy, after all. He raised me, even though I'm not his own blood. Wait, what? What do you mean? She asked, looking at me in surprise and leaning in. Oh, I'm not actually my parents' biological child. Are you saying I'm not related by blood to anyone in my family? I was adopted. Emma covered her mouth in shock. So I continued explaining. When I was a baby, my biological parents died in a car accident. My grandparents on both sides were each living alone, barely making ends meet. So they couldn't take me in. That's awful. It is what it is. There was no one to take me in at first, but when my dad heard, he decided to adopt me into the Mitchell family. Apparently, he was my birth father's best friend. So I'm not related by blood to my dad, mom, sister, or even my grandpa. So, that's how it was. While I spoke casually, Emma looked visibly affected, a dark expression crossing her face. I hadn't meant to make her feel that way, and I scratched my head awkwardly. I'm sorry. I had no idea. Of course, you wouldn't. You're actually the first classmate I've ever told. But then, how did you realize that your current parents aren't your biological parents? Well, I noticed something was off right when I started 9th grade. My parents are both type O, and so is my sister. But I'm the only one with type A blood, even though two O-type parents can only have an O-type child, right? She nodded thoughtfully. So, yeah, I was really shaken when I realized I wasn't related by blood. I didn't know if I should even ask my parents about it. I was so stressed out that my grades dropped. Come to think of it, you weren't yourself for a while. Was that why? Yeah. But then, one day, my homeroom teacher, Mr. Thompson, noticed something was up and reached out to me. So I told him about it, that I was the only one in my family with a different blood type. Do you know what he said? Let's see. Emma folded her arms, thinking deeply. The answer was, "That's what you're worried about?" She laughed. That sounds just like Mr. Thompson, right? But his advice really helped me. Then he said something that stuck with me. The people you think of as your parents are your true parents, Rick. Does blood connection really matter? Even in marriage. People start as strangers, but they become family. You were raised with love in the Mitchell family. If you ask me, that's more than enough. But what do you think, Rick? Emma chuckled warmly. That's so like him. That's something few teachers would be able to say. Right? After that, he talked with my parents, which was a huge help because I didn't know how to bring it up myself. My parents said they'd plan to tell me once I became an adult, but I figured it out first. They must have been so flustered. Oh, they were totally panicking. It's funny looking back on it. Honestly, knowing my origin didn't cause me any turmoil. And that's thanks to Mr. Thompson. I see. But honestly, I think you and your dad look like true father and son. Really? Yeah, you both have the same expression, with your eyes softening when you smile. Ha ha. Guess we started looking alike from living together so long. Emma smiled and said, I'm sure that's the case. Her smile made my heart skip a beat, but I managed to keep the conversation going. Actually, I think I resemble my grandpa more than anyone else. You really love your grandpa, don't you? Yeah, both he and grandma have always been amazing, treating me like a real grandson. That's why I couldn't bear the thought of letting the farm he built go under. I see. I'm sorry for putting down your work. Emma gripped her coffee cup tightly, apologizing. Compared to your struggles, my own worries seem so trivial. I don't think they were trivial at all. No, they were small. And to think, your dad was the one who saved Harris Foods. I can't thank him enough. It was really just a misunderstanding, and I just wanted to clear that up. Even so, I still want to apologize and show my gratitude. Emma leaned forward, saying it so earnestly that I was momentarily taken aback. I managed to reply, carefully choosing my words. Oh, by the way, Dad seemed nostalgic when I mentioned Mr. Harris's name. Then let's do this. Why don't we have dinner at my place sometime soon? Wait, are you sure? Yes, actually, my dad's always been curious about yours. Right after middle school, you moved away so suddenly. At the time, I thought he had some negative reasons, but maybe he was just grateful for everything your family did. Yeah. Let's plan a day. I'll bring Dad along. Please do. Seeing her look so happy made me smile, too. We exchanged contact information right there. A few days later, my dad and I brought some of our finest farm-raised Red Sea bream and flounder to Harris Foods. When Mr. Harris and my dad met, they shared a firm, heartfelt handshake as they reunited after so long. The four of us ended up drinking and laughing together, forgetting the time. The sake Mr. Harris had prepared was delicious, and I found myself pleasantly buzzed. By the way, my daughter Emma here is already over 30 and still hasn't found herself a boyfriend,
Mr. Harris said with a grin.
No way. Such a beautiful woman, that's a shame.
Though my son Rick here is pretty much in the same boat, my dad chimed in.
Dad. Stop it.
Seriously, Dad, cut it out. As the conversation unexpectedly turned to dating, Emma blushed and gave her dad a playful slap on the back. I, on the other hand, shot a glare at my own father.
Rick, what do you think about my daughter? Mr. Harris asked suddenly. Huh? Oh, come on. Mr. Harris said, chuckling. Nicely said.
What do you think, Rick? He added, nudging me.
Well,
I stammered, caught off guard, my cheeks growing warm. Mr. Harris and my dad exchanged a knowing look and chuckled. Emma gave my shoulder a playful tap and said, "Come on, that's not an answer." I rubbed my shoulder, shooting her a look, but she just pretended not to notice. Watching her, I thought maybe, just maybe, we had a pretty good connection after all.
It was a night filled with laughter and unexpected warmth.